Hello, welcome, Diego. Thank you, first of all, for taking the time to do this interview with me around the SAP certification. You've been an SAP mentor for quite a few years. We've known each other in this capacity, and I'd be, very, very interested in having this exchange with you on certification and the value around certification, the value around developing knowledge and skills in SAP products and solutions.
Thank you, Jan, for welcoming me. The first question that I have is, why is upskilling in SAP important, right? So what are the benefits that you're seeing these days?
The one metaphor that I think has always been true from the on-prem days, and it has even become more valid today, is, for me, SAP professionals are like pilots, right? They're flying an impensive piece of machinery, and more often the cargo of the machinery is even more valuable, i.e. the data in the systems, business processes in the systems, everything that runs on these systems, right? So like pilots, SAP professionals need a license, in my opinion, and an SAP certification is that license, and it's not yet the experience, right? So of course, I distinguish very much between the license that everybody should have, and then of course with each flight, with each project, you collect more and more experience, and here is another little thing about this metaphor. I mean, pilots need to keep their license up to date. They need a certain number of flying hours every year so that the license stays valid. And I think that also holds true, and that even holds true more today with cloud and intelligent technologies and the faster innovation cycles than it has been in the old on-prem area, where you could probably survive several years with a certain level of knowledge and status of knowledge.
Absolutely.
And now we look at 90-day release cycles, and I think that's why continuous learning and revalidating your skills and your knowledge has become so important to being successful, being a successful SAP professional. Yeah.
Absolutely. So how is actually SAP helping the community members, to build and maintain this knowledge about SAP products, especially what you mentioned, right? So many new products, and now the change cycle completely changed.
Yeah. So from my point of view, there are many different ways for an SAP professional to develop their knowledge and skills around SAP products, how to implement, how to run, operate, administer, how to use. Maybe there are too many ways, and I can come back to that later. And in too many ways ending up being confusing, maybe, but we'll come back to that later. Today we have the SAP community, which is a great place for meeting other SAP professionals and asking questions, getting answers, doing social peer-to-peer type of learning. We also have Open SAP, our completely free enterprise MOOC program featuring 40-50 courses a year on the most strategic topics, available really to anybody who's interested with an email address. Then we have the Learning Hub, which I often refer to as our digital learning core platform, which is really targeting professionals who need to go deep, who need to go broad, who, from project to project need to maybe add a little skill set to their profile because of that specific customer implementation. The Learning Hub includes all of our learning content across the entire SAP portfolio, from overview all the way down to the very detailed, nitty-gritty, hands-on knowledge on how to develop apps or how to extend our applications, how to install our applications. And the Learning Hub is also, it's a digital platform, first and foremost, lots of content, it's structurally designed content and structured learning journeys leading to certifications, but then it also has so-called learning rooms, mini learning communities, where a lot of social learning takes place. And I think once you've gone through the structured learning journey, you probably don't do that again. And the biggest value then of the Learning Hub becomes that learning room, where you are part of a community of, say, SuccessFactors professionals or S4 professionals, BTP professionals. And there's a lot of informal content there. And then last but not least, really important as well, we have access to training systems. I really believe, having been a consultant and an instructor, that the access and getting the hands onto an actual system is so key to developing the knowledge and skills that you need to be successful, and at the customer site, in the field. So we provide our training systems as well. Last thing, we also provide, of course, still traditional instructor-led training, both in physical, much less, of course, now the last couple of years through COVID, and we've moved everything to virtual. So that is also still available. So it's a lot of different ways and a lot of different formats or learning styles, learning preferences that we're trying to accommodate.
I think, learners has been impacted, the behavior that they have due to, this 18 months that we have been so much with virtual. So from your experience, how is the Zoom fatigue or the virtual fatigue being handled so far? What is the main impacts that you see the pandemic had over learners' behavior?
Yeah. So from a learning perspective, I mean, we weren't able to deliver physical classroom training for 18 months, and we had reopenings here and then, but we had extremely little possibility to actually deliver physical classroom. So as you say, everything went digital or virtual. So we saw this pandemic has been like a stress test on digital and virtual learning, and we saw a lot of things which didn't work, where we have a huge opportunity to improve. And so day-long courses, right, in a virtual mode is not an experience that is appreciated, right? While I think you want to come to a physical training center and be there maybe for 3 days or 5 days and focus really on the learning in this physical environment, in a virtual environment, working from home, sitting in a Zoom call for 8 hours a day, 3 or 5 days in a row is really not an experience that people appreciate.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so, we, in terms of virtual learning, I think we have to chop it into smaller pieces, 2-3 hour segments maximum, so that learners can go through the same 3 days, but maybe over a course of 3 weeks or 4 weeks, and do 2 or 3 hours whenever they have time to do 2 or 3 hours, either live or look at the recording and have a social learning community type capability to maybe ask the questions if they have looked at the recording. And the same applies to the digital content, right? We cannot serve huge monolithic e-learning courses that are difficult to navigate. I've talked, and I'm constantly talking to learners, and everybody wants this YouTube style of learning.
Yeah.
I told this anecdote the other day. I was on vacation, and you have these practical questions of life. How to change the blades in a lawnmower, or what is the best lure for catching a pike. And you Google it, and you get a beautiful direct answer. And learning goes very much in this direction. People want concise answers to their questions, and in terms of learning, that means and it doesn't always have to be a video. It can be a short video, it can be a short text, it can be a picture, it can be a podcast. There's many different formats. And I think mixing the formats is perfectly fine. But I think the key learning out of this pandemic is, make it flexible for me. Let me consume learning when I have time to learn. And then in that moment, serve me the learning that directly relates to my question, and don't let me search for the needle in the haystack and then serve me a huge course where maybe only one chapter is relevant to my immediate problem.
Yes. So how is SAP currently investing in making learning easier, right? So to this point you're explaining.
We did a strategic exercise in Q4 last year where we looked at all our properties, all our destinations for learning at SAP. If you like, the digital experience, when you come in as a learner, and we did it like that, we basically mandated non-knowledgeable learners to say, get certified in S/4HANA Cloud Finance, and document every click and tell us your experience, show us your experience, and our findings were that we have too many destinations. We, starting with this initial digital experience of somebody who wants to learn something very specific, to discover that and then to access that is complicated. And this is, this has become our focus since then. We want to simplify the discovery and the access to learning for our learners. And so one of the big things connected to that is the consolidation of our learning destinations that we're currently working on. Our new learning destination has been launched as a beta at Sapphire this year. It's called learning.sap.com. It's a beta version. It's a single learning journey for now. we really want to work together with our learners. So a lot of what we have launched at Sapphire was already informed by, a lot of learner feedback. And we didn't want to launch more than that because we wanted to make sure that this small scope, is going through a lot of learner due diligence. So we're getting all the feedback possible into the process of designing SAP's new learning experience. So we're investing heavily to get it right, to really work with our learners to get their feedback into the product management, the innovation process, the road mapping process. We're planning to extend learning.sap.com for TechEd this year. So watch that space. And eventually learning.sap.com, that's our goal, our aim, should become the single destination for all SAP product learning, product knowledge, product skills. We want a certification to be valuable. And so why don't you share with us your experience and what you yourself have experienced, but also what you're seeing and hearing in the ecosystem around the value of SAP certification.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this is my personal view, not reflecting the whole community. This, as you know, this is a very discussed topic. But personally, from my point of view, I see two scenarios or two profiles, if you want to call it away, two different learners. So from one point of view, of course, if you're starting your career as an SAP consultant, whether it's a functional or technical consultant, I think having a certification, it will give you the baseline for you to build the rest of your knowledge on top of that. If you see the evolution of education since I started in 2005, 2006 to today, we're talking about like complete shift. I don't know how many degrees, right? So from that point of view, starting a career today as an SAP consultant and going into SAP learning, and starting your career from that point of view, I think it's amazing. So now, if you go more to the experience side of the house, right? So people who has 15, 20, 25 years of experience working with SAP technologies, I think this is, for the past 5 years, I would say, and maybe a little bit more, this is a pivotal moment for these people to actually expand their skills or to make a shift, right, from their career perspective. And again, like if I have 25 years working as an ABAP developer, I don't need to take a certification or training. But of course, if I have zero experience, working with Node.js or Cloud Foundry or SAP Cloud Platform, because all these new technologies are coming up, I will recommend and I will have to take a training, right? And coming back to my example of the new consultant, right, that is starting for the first time. As I'm going into complete different technology stack, I'm starting for the first time, from that point of view. So I think it's very important that both, junior beginners and experienced consultants to find the right path for these type of certifications. Yeah. And this could help, partners, employers, and customers to actually, with everything that is new, just to have a baseline, how to recognize knowledge and also how to build their workforces, because and this is something I see a lot with my customers. They do not know how to upskill in a scalable way.
Thank you. Yeah, and I see that too. Talking to many partners these days. What's happening? One phenomenon that's happening is really that a lot of the SAP professionals, the SAP practices of our partners, they are going through what's the right word? Like a big transition, a big transformation, where a lot of the on-prem consultants, they have also reached a certain age now, moving into pension and not picking up the new cloud and intelligent technologies anymore. So there is a huge renewal happening, and I think we need to all work together to get new young talents into the SAP ecosystem. How did it shape your career and your career path?
Yeah,
certification.
Yeah. So last time I was certified as more traditional technologies was ABAP in 2011. At the time, it helped me with my employer situation. But recently, last year, we have been doing a lot of extensions in SAP Cloud Platform and mainly in success factors, right? I was not an SAP success factors consultant, and but I worked for many years with the size of the extensions that I have to build. And last year we decided, with my company, we decided, okay, let's try to give a jump start. Let's become better. And we all took a success factors training, and then we all certified. And I really liked the experience that I went through, like what you were mentioning before, right? So I can just take the full training on my own time, in the pace that I want. And also I had the chance to go to the training systems and play with it. Of course, later on, I got my partner instance and also play there as well and train as well there. And also the certification was 100% virtual, right? So I was able to certify myself from the house. So I think, overall the experience, it was great. And it helped me a lot, again, as an experienced consultant to jumpstart my career in a completely different direction. What are the SAP future plans for certifications and badges, right? And this is something we talk in the past a lot, with the mentors program. So how is that, future looks like?
So first of all, connecting to what I said earlier, we're building learning.sap.com, our single, a future learning destination. Eventually, we plan to become our only learning destination, and their certification, should, from an experience perspective, just become an integral part. It's integrated, and so from the experience, we're trying to weave certification into learning. You don't have to go to a separate certification hub, which we still have today. So where you might have the need to log on with a different user and so on. So we're really trying to bring the experience really together into one place. And then if you look at certification itself, I'll be very open here. I think we're having some really tough discussions in the moment, both internally and with customers and partners. The underlying ambition and purpose of all of these conversations and tough discussions is that we want it to be valuable. We want the perceived value of certification to increase in the ecosystem. And I think we have some way to go there. And so we're having lots of conversations with customers, partners, individual learners. We want to do what's valuable for them. We want to hold on to the value of SAP certification. That is an official stamp, from SAP for a certain knowledge and skill level, not to be confused with badges. However, we want to introduce more badges to make maybe the preparation towards certification a more flexible, enjoyable, engaging approach. So we are contemplating to more systematically introduce learning badges that you can acquire, and that a certain amount of learning badges then, is amounting to or is leading to a certain certification. So we're contemplating that. We have already made, I think, a lot of commercial simplification on certification this year. Before you had to buy a 6-pack of certifications, and that we have now stopped. You can still buy a 6-pack of certification because some people want to, do 2 or 3, and then they, sometimes fail 1 or 2. So, 6. There was a sensibility in 6 certifications, but we have introduced a single certification now for 150 euros. We've also made it much easier to access certification because we have included them in many of our Learning Hub subscriptions, so you don't need to buy them separate anymore. So when you buy Learning Hub Partner Edition, for example, or Partner Edition or Solution Edition, you get a certification included. There's been a lot of commercial transformation that us trying to reduce the commercial entry barriers for developing SAP knowledge and skills.
Yeah, absolutely, and I have been seeing that happening, and that's great to have, to be honest. Community members, how can they find more information, right? So where they can actually follow up in everything you have been mentioning in our discussion today.
In the SAP community, we will bring learning and community more and more together. That's another thing we didn't talk about, but this is something that we're working on. So learning.sap.com, our new learning site, will be seamlessly integrated with the SAP community. We are planning, in fact, to move the whole social learning, the peer-to-peer learning and the webinars that we are having in learning rooms today. We're planning to move that into the community and not have learning rooms and Learning Hub anymore, and also community groups discussing pretty much the same thing. So trying to bring that together. So community and learning will move much closer together. To follow us and the developments we just talked about, go to the community and check out learning.sap.com now, but as well, when TechEd comes around, we'll have some great updates and news to share there.
Awesome. All right, so looking forward for the surprises around TechEd, and also very excited to hear that you are doing this approach, with the community and simplifying that experience to all the community members. So from my side, I want to thank you for taking time, having this lovely discussion. And look forward to more things from the SAP Learning team. All right.
Thank you so much, Diego, for your time. It's been a pleasure as always. Thank you.